I am stressed out. It feels like I'm drowning, but I am not. Mario is. I had heard rumors about the water level from friends, and I was really looking forward to playing it on my very own NES. After months of trying, I finally made it to World 2-2 with just one life left. This is the moment I find out I do not know how to make Mario swim. I pause the game to read the manual. When you're in the water, each press of this button makes you bob up. It says, rather unhelpfully, as I don't want to bob, I need to swim. But so far, I am stuck in front of a tall piece of coral. Dad, I really need some help here. I can't swim, I shout. My father, for whom this new gaming box is an unwelcome guest, sighs, gets up from behind his newspaper and walks over to the TV. I already know what he's going to say. Read the manual. I did, but I don't get it, I say, and hand him the booklet. It says right here, you press A, my father says. I know, I say angrily, but it's not working. Well, then you gotta try and make it work, my dad replies. I try. I have never tried anything so hard in my 8 years of life as getting Mario to swim over that piece of coral. As I try, my dad just stands there calmly, watching Mario and me frantically flap about as the timer is ticking down to an inevitable end to this crisis. When it hits 0 and the game over screen pops up, the crush of failure washes over me, and I start to cry. Seems to me like it's time to stop gaming, boyo, my dad says as he gives me a hug. I switch off the NES, but the next day after school, armed with some swimming tips from my friends, I pick up the controller and try to beat Super Mario Bros. Again. And again. And again. And again. Super Mario Bros. Is my foundational gaming experience. It's not only what I played all the time, it's also what I was thinking about all the time when I was playing. I was just fascinated by it. Not only I needed to know everything about the game, not only because I wanted to finish it, but also because I really needed to understand what this game was doing to me, right? Even to the point of getting nightmares, and that's why my mom told me to stop playing so much Mario Bros. Even if it's a pretty old game by now, I still think it's pretty good at explaining something fundamental that happens when we play games. And that fundamental thing is, and it's also really the point about my memory of my inability to swim in Super Mario Bros., is that it illustrates how playing a game is a voluntary attempt to overcome unnecessary obstacles. This is a definition of what a game is that is not mine, and it predates, in fact, Super Mario Bros. By a couple of years even, and it can be found in the 1978 work The Grasshopper, Games, Life and Utopia by game philosopher Bernard Suits. And this definition was recently explored further by C.T. Nguyen, another philosopher of games, who reframes it as the idea that games are an art form of agency. Games are, in his reading of things, about taking up goals temporarily, not because we actually care about achieving those goals in any sort of enduring way, but because we want to have a certain kind of struggle. And if you think about it, in Super Mario Bros., do we actually care that much about saving the princess? Maybe, but only really insofar as it is part of our experience of overcoming the challenges in the game. The game designers themselves even played around with this, or even in the parlance of our time, which even sort of troll around with this, with their famous "Our princess is in another castle." In fact, as soon as you have finally saved that princess, you can start all over again right away, now with even more difficult enemies en route. Before you even get to that point, there are many challenges that you'd have to overcome, and you would have to do so voluntarily. And one of the genius game design aspects of Super Mario Bros. Is that it understands this idea of voluntary challenge and shows you this throughout. The whole game is a slow but steady ramp up from being a Mario noob to feeling like a gallery player. The very start of the game is a great example of this. In the beginning, you just stand still. You have to move forward in order to get somewhere. That's the first lesson. And as soon as you start moving forward, trouble is coming your way in the form of a Goomba. For a whole generation of first-time players, simply overcoming that Goomba became its own goal. It required you to get to grips with the game controller and its jump action, but then slowly but surely that Goomba becomes a speed bump, or not even that, just a bit of gallery play en route to greater challenges. So, what Super Mario Bros. Is very good at is providing us with an empowering and aesthetic experience of striving, right? This idea of agency as art that Nguyen is talking about. You can clearly see this in more recent games too, where a whole category of games has even turned this into a get good or go home mentality, for better or worse. Many more games have taken this idea of a playful difficulty ramp and use it to effectively teach and structure their gameplay. Still, while this is done really well in Super Mario Bros., it wasn't invented in that game. Giving us the tools and the agency to deal with our trouble is simply a core thing at the heart of many, if not all, games. In that sense, games are an extremely valuable medium for our times, in which there sadly is quite a bit of trouble. Ecological crisis, viral contagion, disease, rampant inequality and violence. These are not the types of trouble we want to have to deal with. But as Donna Harway, a biologist, a trained biologist, as well as a feminist scholar, convincingly argues in her book Staying with the Trouble, that is exactly what we need to do. If, at least, we want to have a chance of living hopeful lives in this era, together with other humans and non human beings that call this planet home. And as such, we have to understand that there is no end state where our troubles will be solved. Rather, what this era asks of us is to stay with the trouble in the moment and accept it for the challenges and the discoveries that it puts in front of us. Just as with a game of Mario Bros. Haraway 2 clearly identifies playing's value for staying as, this is a quote, it is precisely in the realm of play, outside the dictates of teleology, settled categories and function, that serious worldliness and recuperation become possible. This became very clear during a recent global health crisis where so many of us were asked to stay away from trouble by locking ourselves away, only to find it in our own homes in the form of disconnection, boredom, and anxiety. When many of us turned to games during that time, we found that games that playing connected us to the world and grounded us in a crisis in which we had otherwise little agency. Oftentimes, games are seen as a form of escapism. That certainly is what my father and many others who didn't grow up playing games thought it looked like. Yet, what I have personally learned from drowning in Super Mario Bros. Is that games are not about hiding from, but about staying with your trouble. That trouble is real enough. Our game experiences can make us tilt to the hilt, as I was doing back then, get our heart racing, and even make us cry bitter tears, only to see us dig back in and find the trouble again and 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 again